intro about myself. Then we'll go into you folks. And then when it comes back to me, I'll give you a little bit more detailed situation about what I currently do. So Stephen Miller, I graduated Oneonta 1991. I was a political science and a geography dual major. And I currently live in Woodbury, New York, and I grew up in Dix Hills, New York, and graduated from Half Hollow Hills High School West in 1987. So that's my brief intro, and then Carmel, I'll kick it off to you.
Hi, my name is Carmel. I was a physics major, but now I'm a professional accounting major. I don't know what else I should say.
Where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Wantagh. It's in Long Island.
Great. Catalina?
Oh, hi. I joined Oneonta 2 years ago. I'm a finance professor, my tenure track. My PhD is from Florida International University. Also my Master of Science in Finance. And my first tenure track job was in Washington, D.C. at University of the District of Columbia, and then a short stint at the UTC in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then here I am at SUNY, so I'm very happy to be at SUNY. It's a great place to be, and I have wonderful students, and Carmel is my student, so that's
great. That is great.
I was laughing.
And then Katanya, is that the right way to pronounce your name?
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Tanya, my major is accounting right now. I changed it from education. When I was working at the grocery store, I realized I'd rather do something with business because they have me doing the bookkeeping for their store. So I do like a little bit of business work there. I like look at their invoices and stuff. So that was something I was more interested in than teaching. I live in Cross River, New York.
Awesome. And then Deborah Scott, I think it's up to you, if she can hear us. All right, we'll move.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, my name is Deborah Scott. I'm majoring in professional accounting and I live in Queens, New York.
Welcome. And Stacy Robinson?
I am the admin assistant for the Alumni Engagement Office. I've worked in this office for, I don't know, probably about 6 years now. So I'm really just doing back end support.
Got it. So just so I have it correct. We have three students on right now. We have 4 students on right now. Is that correct?
And did you speak to Elizabeth?
I'm sorry. Hi, Elizabeth. I missed you.
It's okay. I was waiting. But my name's Elizabeth Ringgold. I'm from Staten Island, New York, but now I live off campus in Oneonta. And I'm a major in business economics with a concentration of marketing.
Okay, great.
That's a little bit about me.
How much snow did Oneonta get yesterday? I heard it was snowing up there.
It was snowing a lot in the morning, and then by night, it was dying down, and then snowed again at night, and in the morning, and now it's kind of dying down. But I think it should be stopping by tomorrow, hopefully.
Is there any accumulation?
Yeah, of course there is. Like, of course.
Couple inches.
So I guess maybe we'll just kick off now, and as people join, we'll just kind of break off and maybe have them introduce themselves. But I think Scott Miller is joining shortly. Call it 2 o'clock. So let's kind of go through a few minutes from my standpoint. I want to go back to my intro, and I think it's important to think about. And I know one of two of you had mentioned you started out with one major and you popped into another major. I was a geography and a political science major, and I took a grand total of 1 business course in Oneonta, and I've been in finance for my entire life. So you just don't know what path your future will bring for you, right? So never shut anything down. Never think you're locked into anything. And this is more of a life lesson versus a career lesson. And sometimes when things get really, really tricky, it's amazing how good things can work out. And the short story from that is, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I graduated college in 1991. I thought I was going to actually be an urban and regional use attorney. So that's my geography and then the attorney comes with the political science, and I'm going to go to law school. It's 1991, and there's a recession, and I figured I would work for a year and then try to get into a better law school. And what happened was, at the time, all of the lawyers were looking for jobs and ended up getting all the paralegal jobs that I was applying for. So I couldn't find a job. So my idea of getting experience and then going to law school were just blown out of the water. Now I needed to get a job, as most of us from Oneonta, right? We're a little bit different from this school because most of us have been working before we got to school. Most of us work while we're in school, and we have to work when we get out of school, right? No one has the silver spoon. No one's father's in some great trucking business where you can just kind of take over, and become some person and move forward. So I had to get a job. And the only job that was offered to me was something in finance. And it was a bit of luck. I got involved with a few good people. And then I kind of moved through my career. But before I move through my career for you, I just want to give a plug to the school. Also, I met my wife in Oneonta. We got married when I was 24 or 5. I don't even know. Jill probably has a better relationship with my wife than I do. I'm just kidding. And so Oneonta is near and dear to our heart. So when this first came up 5 or 6 years ago or 7 years ago, whatever it was, I was happy to do it. We have a scholarship endowed in my wife's best friend's name, who unfortunately passed away at a very, very young age. So we're happy to do that. Also, Scott Miller, who will be coming on shortly, is a fraternity brother of mine. We pledged freshman year together, and we're in a fraternity for the 3 or 4 years after that. And the one thing that always seems to tie people from Oneonta together is we're all kind of like very scrappy. And maybe it's because we've all been working before we got to school, and we're, most of us have to work in school, and pretty much most of us were on financial aid in school. We just know the value of a dollar. We appreciate what gets put in front of us, and we know how to get things done. And I think that's really important, no matter what industry or major or anything else you're in. So the most important piece, give me 1 second, I'm sorry.
While you do that, Steve, I'm going to welcome Jess. Jess, if you're able, turn your camera on. And if you're not able, what we did while everyone was joining us was saying, introduce themselves, their hometown, and what their major is.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I can't turn my camera on right now.
That's okay.
But, my name's Jessie Wilson. I'm from Lake George, New York, and I'm a business econ major.
Great, welcome. And guys, I'm sorry that I get diverted every once in a while. Since we're working from home and I'm working in the market's very active right now. It's good and it's bad, right? I can always be involved with my clients, so that's good, but it's bad because normally I'd be in a conference room and I would be away from all of this activity. But like once you're in it, it's like hard to leave. So the next piece of information I was going to tell you, and I was going to say the most important thing I could tell you is how important networking is, right? And that's why this whole thing is great. And if you guys don't have my email, I'll give it to you right now. Write it down. It's Stephen. You see my name on the screen, Stephen.Miller@Bernstein, BERNSTEIN.com. I'm hoping that you guys are better prepared for the business world than I was, but I never knew how to write a resume. I had to learn on my own. I didn't have anybody to talk to about different opportunities, about how to find a job. Back then it was answering ads in the paper. Now I know it's all, online and through LinkedIn. I encourage you to reach out to me. Reach out to me with any questions. If you want me to look at your resume, reach out to me. I'll take a look at it. I might not respond the first day. I might not respond the second day. It's not because I don't care. It's because I get probably 1,500 emails a day. So I will get to your email, but keep coming back to me, right? If you send me an email on Monday and it's Wednesday, just give me the old, hey, I'm not sure if you saw it, but I sent you an email on Monday. Would love to hear your help, blah, blah, blah. Don't take it personally. I will get to you. It's just because I either missed it or I just got too busy with something. So do that. Also, LinkedIn, if you don't have a profile, get a profile out there ASAP. It's super important. What's going to happen is there are these awesome artificial intelligence machines that these great big executive recruiting companies have. And if they have a job opportunity and you have a LinkedIn profile, the machine actually might connect you to it and send you a message. So if you have a good profile out there, get it, even if it's not a great profile, put your profile out there. If you've done some volunteer work, put it on there, right? The AI machines, they find it and they do it. So get that done. So that's the plug for networking, for keeping in touch with me, for getting a LinkedIn profile out there. It's super, super important. And when you go for job interviews, when you meet with people, right? Be persistent. Make sure you get everybody's email, right? Write it down, send them a note that day. You want to be creative? Send them a handwritten note. I don't know, do something. You want to separate yourself from the pack? Do that. I think that's kind of neat. Look at their LinkedIn profile before you go in so you know who you're meeting with. And by the way, on your LinkedIn profiles, I can't tell you how to do it now because we're not doing it together, but if you want to reach out to me, I can. Make sure you're anonymous. It doesn't cost anything. Become anonymous. This way, if you're interviewing with me and you look me up on LinkedIn, I don't see that you looked me up. But if you don't check off that anonymous button, I will see it. I won't hold it against you. But I just think it's better to just be anonymous from there. So any questions?
I just was going to mention one thing, that they certainly, once they get their LinkedIn profile, be sure to request from the SUNY Oneonta Alumni Association LinkedIn group, because that's a huge group on LinkedIn, and you can meet with other recent graduates or other established graduates such as Steve. And I have yet to find an alum.
Reach out to me. Reach out to me for a request. That's great. Like, listen, the same way I'll do anything for Oneonta kids that Jill asked me to do is the same way that when you're applying for a job. If you're applying for a job in the accounting industry and you happen to go on LinkedIn and you sort by Oneonta and you find 7 accountants and they're not necessarily advertising for a job, reach out to them blind. Why not? Right? And Oneonta people, I mean, it doesn't matter what school you went to, alumni love to help the kids, right? And, maybe things get lost in the shuffle at some of the bigger schools, but like at Oneonta, I've been working for almost 27 years. I can count on both hands how many times a person from Oneonta has reached out to me because they're interested in finance and they're not really sure what direction to go in. And I have a 100% hit ratio of trying to help these people out, right? So I'm not overburdened with that. I encourage you guys to do it. So just kind of, let's go backwards for a second. So I graduated in 91. I got a job in what people would call wealth management today, but back then we called it a stockbroker. I was working for Lehman Brothers. That's the job that was just offered to me, not because I was looking for finance, but it was the only thing that I was able to get. And I quickly fell in love with it, right? Like, so it's like, okay, so I'm a poli-sci and a geography major. I know nothing about finance. So what do you do? Well, what I'll tell you is, and it's the same thing I tell all the interns and all the associates that come through my way, whatever job you get is your day job. That's your day job. And you also have an indirect job that's not going to be in the job description. It's called your night job, right? So you learn what you do during the day, and then you better learn a lot at night, right? And that's on your discretion. So, if it's accounting, you guys might have a more institutionalized format of what you're doing and how you get the CPA done. Maybe that's more of your night job. But if you don't have a job that's like super institutionalized with like a schedule, you got to find out what to do. Like if you're in finance, right? Like we have a lot of different areas of finance, right? Like for instance, you can be in the stock side of finance, or you can be in the bond side of finance, or, very current for like your world, just by like, for the people that I'm looking at who are on right now, like, have you heard the term Bitcoin or cryptocurrency? Is that something you guys are familiar with? Right. It's something that you're familiar with. So you might not know the inner workings of it, but maybe you read up on that kind of stuff. So that's your day. That's your night job. So I think that's super important. So went from Lehman Brothers, found my passion, did all my work at night, right? Learning about things. And then quickly realized I wanted to get more involved with trading. So I started trading a product called options, better known as equity derivatives. So I was lucky enough through my networking, I'm going to keep going back to that, to find someone on the floor of the exchange. Back then we had floors, now everything's electronic. on the floor of the American Stock Exchange, who was offered, who they had told me that there was an assistant role that they were looking. And this was maybe 2 years after I graduated college, so call it 93, 94 timeframe, 24 years old, let's say. And I got the job, and now it's like one of those things, you know, when you didn't expect something and it just kind of smacks you in your face. I'm like, holy cow, like this is my home. Like this is where I should be. And I never knew it even existed. So I knew that at 24, and that was in 1994, let's call it. And in 2021, I'm still doing the same thing. So I knew I basically had my future in front of me. I just didn't know what to do with it. So that job lasted 2 years. That was on a floor market making, trading options. And then I went up to a place called Prudential Securities. I did that for 10 years. And then for any history, for any students that like history, when I say the name Bear Stearns, it's a little bit of a bittersweet comment in my mouth, almost only because I had a great time working there. I got there in 2003, but the company went out of business in 2008 in the global financial crisis. So we got swallowed up by JP Morgan. So officially we didn't go out of business. We just got taken over by the big 800-pound gorilla, JP Morgan. I worked at JP Morgan for less than a year, only because I knew that, hey, Scotty, how are you, bud? Only because I knew that it was just a really, really tough place to get any of my client business done. So I knew, along with my team, that we were looking for a more interesting place to get involved with, where we can be just better served to our clients. So I ended up at the current place I am now, Sanford Bernstein, in 2009, right after the global financial crisis. And the most important thing for me from that standpoint was it was such a difficult time in my life, because you just don't know what the next turn's going to be. And I was able to surround myself with really, really good people. So it was less about what the job opportunity was for me at that point, and more about, I want to be around really good people. It's a really crappy time. I think we can survive this, but what's the best way to do it, right? And it ended up working out fine. But when you're around bad people, like just bad things seem to happen. And even if the job's not working out great and you're around good people, things happen, right? Like your boss, who's a good person, leaves and goes to another firm. Then you stay in touch with them, and sure enough, they're looking to kind of recruit and bring you over. So a lot of good things like that were to happen. And then, like, really, if you guys are super interested in what I'm doing within equity derivatives, I would tell you, instead of me getting into the weeds on what that really is all about here, use my email, reach out, let's have like conversations, ask your questions, we'll go from there. I know Scott Miller just hopped on. I think I'm going to at this point, I think I'll turn it over to you, Scott, and go through that. And then maybe once you're done, the two of us could kind of wrap out in a Q&A from there.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. And guys, sorry I'm late. I had a client call I had to be on, but you were in good hands with Steve. And while we have the same last name, we're not officially brothers, although we're fraternity brothers and pledged together. So that's as much brotherhood as we've got. But this is my fourth Backpacks to Briefcases, my first virtual. So it's a little different. I've always had the group come to the office, which has been fantastic, and it's an incredible program. So thank you all for participating, and hopefully you get a lot out of this. You know, when I graduated Oneonta, you know, I was in a position where I didn't specialize in anything. I was trying to think about, you know, what I wanted to be doing, and that was the hardest part. I knew I didn't want to be in an office from 9 to 5. That wasn't me. I saw my father was in sales for 30 years, and I said, sales is probably a very good way to make a living. It, you know, gets me out of the office. It gets me meeting with clients, gets me on the road, traveling. So I got into sales, and I wanted to think about, you know, how do you start out? You want to make sure the company has a good training program. You want to make sure that there's opportunity for advancement. And, you know, and you think about, and you also want to be part of a good brand. And my first job was working with Canon, and Canon was a great company, global company, had a great training program. And The only issue with Canon was they don't really promote. So they train you, they grind you, but there's very limited opportunities to grow. So after I got that training, I was fortunate enough to find another opportunity in outside of tech sales, more into retail sales with security systems and loss prevention, and a company I just fell in love with. But at the end of the day, that was also very limited with promotion, you know, and I wanted to make sure that my next job was a career move and not just a job move. And there's a difference there. You know, a career is something, you know, you're passionate about, you love, you're vested in, and you want to keep doing it for a long time. So I wound up having an interview in publishing and media sales, and it was something that I didn't even know about. And back in the day, it was selling ads in magazines, and obviously then digital came out. But it was something that after the first, I'd say, few months, I realized this is what I want to be doing. I love it. It's a very relationship business. It's working with strong brands. It's a young industry, and it's something that has, you know, I've been in ever since, and it's something I fell in love with. You know, and also you're really selling the dream, right? You're helping clients market themselves to the right audience, and working at different publishers that I've worked at has allowed me to do that, has allowed me to build my network, build relationships, and just grow from not only sales, but into management. And not every good salesperson becomes a good manager. And I've seen that over the years, but making sure that, you know, there's opportunities for growth. And if you want to get into management, you can. If you want to stay in sales, and plenty of people stay in sales, that's fine too. But, you know, I always wanted to kind of keep growing and evolving. And I also had a very good mentor, you know, and that's really important. I think Steve started touching on that about the people you work with. So making sure that you have someone that can guide you and mentor you and train you and tell you right from wrong, and help educate you throughout your career. And I had someone that was doing that for me. It was a manager at the time, and then we had left and we had done our own startup together. So we had some really good experience there, and he helped me get to where, you know, I was at essentially. And then we parted ways at one point, but you know, someone that I still ask advice of, I still keep in touch with, and I'm still able to leverage his experience and his help. So he was more senior than me, but he was more experienced and really helped me, you know, to where I'm at today. So that was great. But a few things I just want to kind of talk about as, you know, as you guys are thinking about graduation and then what do you do next? You know, the most important thing, and Steve probably touched on this, but it's networking, right? I think I've gotten most of my jobs through my network, and sending a resume a lot of times through a job post, you know, you're one of many, and it's really difficult to get jobs that way. So the first and foremost thing, you know, is network, network, network. It's starting today. It's networking with Steve, myself, anyone else you're meeting with, talking with. It's really important. Connect on LinkedIn. Start building your LinkedIn network. I think that's critical, and network is so important in the business world. I think it's making sure you have a professional photo on LinkedIn. It's not a Facebook. You know, you want to make sure that it's a good picture. It's not you and your boyfriend or your girlfriend. It's, you know, it's a serious photo, because that's what recruiters look at. That's what hiring managers look at. They go right to their LinkedIn page. And I've hired a lot of people, and that's, you know, you want to make sure that LinkedIn page is your resume, but looks really good. You get recommendations on there. You get a lot of things that really help bring you, you know, to light. And I think also, my dog. The other thing is I know, working at home. It's alumni, right? Like we were talking about, like alumni network is huge. It's really important to leverage, you know, Oneonta and the people and the history there. And maybe you're in the same fraternity or sorority or clubs, or it's really important when you see that to leverage that, because alumni goes a long way. And I know when I see Oneonta on a resume, I'm always willing to talk to them and hear, you know, what's going on with them and have a conversation. So alumni is important. I think peers, coworkers, you know, when you start getting jobs, is really important, and leveraging those relationships, managers, people you work with, clients, making sure you're connecting with them on LinkedIn. And then also looking at, when you start thinking about what you want to do, there's specialized recruiters. So you want to start connecting with those recruiters who can help you or have the jobs that will, help you in the future. So that's important. And then going on websites, HR managers, are really important. HR directors, VP of HR, making sure you're getting to these folks as well, so that you're top of mind, you're on the radar, and if opportunities come up and you apply, you can then reach out and say, hey, hi, Tammy, I applied for the job. Love an opportunity to have a conversation about it, something like that. So I think, networking as a whole is critical, and you can't start soon enough. The more people you know, the better. The other thing I want to talk about is the resume, right? So as you start preparing for jobs, you've got to have a resume and be buttoned up there. First, look at online examples. There's some really well done resumes online that you can take a look at that help you with formatting, with fonts, with structure, design, things like that. I wouldn't go too crazy. Really want to make sure it's critical to have the bullets, highlight, what you've done. Obviously, starting out, you're not going to have too much on there, but it's not a bad thing. As your first job out of college, you want to be highlighting some of the things you did throughout high school and college. It's good to see people who are hustling, people who are aggressive. People aren't just sitting back, but they were always trying to get a job. Maybe they worked at a bagel store or a coffee shop, but that's always good to see. Babysitting, just showing that you are, eager, you're hungry, you wanted to make money, all those things are things that I've always looked at. Sports, I always try and hire people who are competitive and want to win. And I think if you played a sport in college or in high school, or multiple sports, I think it's great to see. It's always good to see on a resume. Just make sure there's no typos and your formatting is accurate. And then the most important thing is taking a look at that job posting and then looking at keywords from that job posting and putting those keywords into the resume. Because recruiters, they use something called an ATS, which is an application tracking system. So they essentially get, if you're applying online, you're getting these resumes, it's going through the system and it's spitting out top candidates. So if you don't have those keywords from the job posting into your resume, you're not going to, you'll never be seen or have a call scheduled. So just make sure that that job posting aligns with your resume and you've got a lot of those keywords mixed in into the resume, because that will help as in many of these companies are now using these tracking systems. But that's one point I just definitely want to highlight, and it's really important. Next, just the pre-interview. Make sure you're doing your homework on the company, you're going on the website, you're checking out press releases, you're learning as much as you can about the company and about the management team. I think that's really important, because they might ask you, have you been to our website? Did you see our latest acquisition? And you want to be, make sure you know about all that stuff. It's really important. Scour that website, look for as much information as you can get. They might even also have webinars, and other types of events that you can attend that, again, the more you know, the better you'll do on that interview. Again, before COVID hit, obviously it's face-to-face interviews. You're making sure that you're showing up early, you're taking a look around the office, you're looking at reports that might be on the table there when you're waiting. You get into that interviewee's office, you're looking around their office. There's been a lot of conversations that I've had in interviews just by looking at a picture. They might have had a picture of the Yankees and, or the Giants. And I may say, oh, I'm a Giant fan too, you like sports. And all of a sudden, the conversation becomes much more friendly and less stressful. I think so. It's really important to, again, do your homework, go on LinkedIn, make sure you look up all the people you're interviewing with and see where they went to college, see any activities they've been involved with. And it just helps with the conversation there. I think that's really important. So doing your homework, I think, is critical as the kind of pre-interview. And then again, making sure, again, when you're face-to-face, always, strong handshake, eye contact, good conversations, making sure you're answering correctly, taking a pause, all those basic things are really important. And I've seen people do it really well, and I've seen people interview really poorly. So, but those are some tips I think, when it comes to interviewing is really important. And then, and last is, the follow-up. I can't tell you how many people I interview that never send a follow-up email, a thank you note, nothing like that. And for me personally, they could be amazing. If they don't do a follow-up and show me they're interested in the job, I'm not going to hire them. So, it's critical, get their business card, get their email, follow up with just a brief note, thanking them for their time, making sure that you've already identified next steps, and you confirm that in those next steps. But again, it's critical after an interview to do follow-up. That's important. And then don't be afraid to keep checking in. You might not hear from them for a week or two, so check in with the hiring manager, check in with HR, keep checking in, and it shows that you're very interested in the opportunity, and you want to be a part of the company. So that's not a bad thing. Too much checking in is not a bad thing. So that's kind of how I see kind of the progress. These are things that I've learned in my career. I've been on a lot of interviews. I've talked to a lot of different companies. The last is your gut. If you're going on multiple interviews and you're thinking about these companies, your gut a lot of times tells you if it feels right. Right? I think Steve said the people. You want to make sure you're working with really good people, smart, fun, caring, all these types of people. It's because you're spending a lot of hours with them. You want to make sure you're able to work with them, you respect them, you trust them, and they listen to you, right? As a person, they listen to your voice, and I think that's really important. So I think all of that combined is going to set you guys up for a really good career, whatever that may be, really good opportunity to get that job. And just, staying hungry. And, there's a lot of people out there looking for jobs, and there will be, and that will never end. But how do you separate yourself from everyone else? And that's, that's kind of how I see it. Again, I'll turn it back over to you guys if there's questions, and you heard from Steve, you heard from myself, probably a couple of different point of view there, but, let us know what questions you may have.
Well, before you jump into questions, I just find it great that Scott and I didn't rehearse this at all. And you could see the highlights of what each one of us said. They're exactly the same thing, right? Which I think is amazing. And Scott, kudos to you, man. That was really good and detailed. Scott got more detailed on what to follow, and you guys follow that. That was really good.
Thanks.
And I'll just add to that one thing I did not say, and I think you got it from Scott and I. I think Scott, you were saying in the beginning you really didn't know what you want to do when you graduate, and I told him I was a double major that had nothing to do with finance. Now I'm in finance. Don't turn down an interview because you don't think it's exactly what you want. There's two things that could happen on that interview. One, you actually might surprise yourself and like it. Let's just start there. But two, it's all about reps, right? And if you're early on in the process, and Scott, maybe these people that you saw, maybe they were early on in the process, maybe they were your first interview, right? Maybe the first time, say, they interviewed. Go for a job that you don't necessarily want, just to get your feet wet. How awesome would it be to go on an interview, not think you want it, not be that nervous about it, right? And then just have an experience of getting your first interview out of the way, right? So just don't be so specific in what you're applying for, because like I said, you might surprise yourself. And if you don't, it's not a waste of your time. So guys, I'd love to get a little interactive with you guys and hear what your thoughts are.
While the students are waiting for questions, I just want to say one thing, that I'm sitting on this search committee right now. I'll give you guys a minute to think of your question. And out of the 30 applicants, 5 of them didn't follow the instructions. So I questioned my search committee today because one of them was a recent alum. And I said, do you think, we still have 2 days before the search closes, should we give them the benefit of the doubt and let them know they didn't follow the instructions? And the other 3 members of the committee said, no, it's a pretty low bar. So if they ask you to send a resume, cover letter, and 3 references, send a resume, cover letter,
Right.
3 references. Like,
Yeah.
don't cut yourself out for like some stupid mistake. It's,
I mean, but it happens. You're right. It happens to me. I catch myself doing it. Like, read the entire, right? And like, you go on the first interview, right? They want you back for the second interview. They send you an email. Read the entire email and maybe write it down. How many times have every single one of us read 80% of an email and left out 20, but like that 20% is super important. Like, take that email. It's almost like I have a daughter who's a senior in college, and I have a daughter who's a senior in high school. And like, we're prepping my daughter who's a senior in high school when she's going to college. It's like, okay, you get your syllabus. Right now, everything that you guys do is online. Scott and I, when we were doing it, everything was kind of like, in a book, we had to write it down. We had like this thing called the Filofax, which is like black and white TV to you guys. But like, I told my daughter, as she's thinking about college, write out your syllabus, right? So when you get that follow-up email, write it out, write it down, have someone else read the email, make sure you got everything right, because that's your first swing, right? Like, you heard Scott say it. If you don't send a follow-up email to him, he's not going to hire you. Could you imagine if he sent you the second email with instructions on what to do and you didn't follow that? You're out, right? So
it's too competitive.
Yeah.
There's too much competition out there, and there's a lot of good talent. So it's one, you got to do the basics, but 2, how do you do above and do more than that? And as I said, the interviews, like, be early, like, be attentive, like, focus. There's so many bad candidates out there. You guys are too good for that.
Mm-hmm. Hey, why don't we talk about interview experience? Has anyone here had interview experience? Can we hear about it?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask a question about like the interview experience, but I've had interview experience where it was all virtual, and it was a 3-process interview where I had to meet with 3 different people for 30 minutes each for a different department. And I know where I went wrong with it, because they asked me if I had any questions, and I felt like I was put on the spot, and I said I did not have any questions. So the question I wanted to ask for you is, what are some good questions to ask, and what are some questions to avoid asking during an interview?
That's good.
Scott, I'll leave this to you, Scott.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. You should always have questions, right? Always bring a notebook, right? Or if it's virtual, have it written down. You always want to have 2 or 3 questions. Sometimes they come up in the interview, and that's great. But you always want to have a couple extra. But I think one is, how do you get advanced? When do I get considered for promotions? It shows that you're hungry and you want to work your way up. I like people that ask that. Another one, let me think. Try and think. Is this a new role, right? Or is it a replacement role? If it's a replacement role, what happened to the last candidate, right? It's good to know, especially if it's a replacement role. If it's not a replacement role, if it's a new role, it means they're growing, right? The company's growing and they're adding headcount. So it's always good to know, what's going on with this role. Is it new? Is it a replacement? That's one. And then, as I said, advancement is another good one. And, when you get considered for promotions, what's the next title? What's the next role? As I'm starting out, is it account executive to, sales manager? Like, what is the process in advancement within the company? So.
Also, like, I'm not sure the best way to ask it, but like, asking about the culture of the company, I think is pretty important. And hopefully that would be something that they touch on during the interview. So if they bring up the culture of the workplace, I think you follow that up with potentially another question, and or if the person interviewing you spoke maybe about themselves for a little bit, how they started, whatever it was. I chatted with you about where I started. You're not necessarily going to get that too often from someone interviewing you, but always asking how said person who's interviewing you got into the business, or what did they start out doing, could also be another direction to go in. And I love Scott's point about researching the company, looking at press releases, when we go back to the new normal, being in their office, if you see like something that's topical, like on the table while you're waiting, that talks about that company, that's a good question to ask right there, because that's showing a real initiative right at that point. And on a point that Scott mentioned, in person, right? Show up early. I also like it when I pop into a Zoom to interview someone when they're there, right? So the Zoom calls for 9:30. There's nothing wrong with popping in at 9:25. If you can't get into the Zoom because the host hasn't started, then so be it. As soon as it starts, you're there. But pop into the Zoom early, because listen, just like sometimes there's a lot of traffic getting somewhere and you need to leave extra time and show up in the office 15 or 20 minutes early and then walk up 10 minutes later. There's always technological issues, right? Like I almost had it here. I went on to my meeting calendar, which would always have the Zoom details, and realized the meeting calendar said the Zoom details were in an email. And then I went to my wrong email and I couldn't find the email. And you know what? It was 5 minutes before. So I had plenty of time. So give yourself, time to get stuck in traffic, so to speak. And like Scott really drove it home. It's so damn competitive out there. Don't miss a great opportunity because you're careless, right? It's like making a mistake on the test when you go back and you reread those questions and you're like, damn, I remember this, and that was a mistake. Or like you take a 100 question test and you left out 3 questions. You literally left them out. Like you're just careless. Just don't be careless, because it's foolish to miss out on something because you're careless, because the body of work that you guys have worked your tails off on goes out the window, right? Don't give a hiring manager the opportunity to not really value you and look at you and judge you for who you really are.
Yeah, no, that's good. And, I think it is important. And you touched on this, but I've had people ask me, why did you join the company? I think it's a great question. What do you like most about the company? That is great, because you're hearing firsthand why they joined, and what do they love about being there? Maybe they're there a year, maybe they're there 5 years, 10 years, but it's nice to hear what keeps them there, why they stick around. They might say culture, they might say their boss, they might say, the company takes care of me, whatever it is. You're able to really get more answers to your questions, and it shows your interest in the company, which is really important. And again, you want that dialogue, because there are a lot of people, you say, you have any questions? They say, no, thank you, goodbye. They don't ask for what are the next steps, in the process. Is there anything else you need from me to show that I'm, a great candidate? Just, closing questions that you always want to ask.
And it's always good to have questions that you can use in all the interviews, so you don't have to stress every time coming up with a new question.
Yeah.
Like if you ask the question,
but Carmel, good for you that you had the interview, right? You went through that, right? You recognized where you can get better, and that part will never happen again, right? That's the point of the reps. So good for you.
Yeah, thank you. That was my very first interview, so I learned a lot from that.
Well, and honestly, that's not surprising, right? Like anything you do the first time, you can't ace it, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're just a prodigy, right? Anyone else on the Zoom? Has anyone else ever been through an interview before?
Nope.
Nope.
no. Well, you can practice anytime amongst yourselves.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, Jill, what else? Can I start singling people out?
Oh, do it. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you 2 quick questions though. Like, what's the best piece of advice you think you've ever received from either a coworker, a faculty member that you had, a manager, and did you take it?
Good question, right? Like, so the best piece of advice that someone once gave me, and Scott mentioned it, and I briefly mentioned it, you need to find a mentor, right? You just need that mentor to help you along. And then you'll always, I have mentors from when I was 25 that were 20 years older than me that I still speak to. Right? They're retired and living in Florida now, but I still bring up questions for them. So yes, someone told me, or as my father said, you need to find a rabbi, right? You need to find a mentor, and always focus on that. And then as you move through life, right, you'll always have that mentor, right? An advisor. It's just like, if your advisor at school is not helping you with school, you find another advisor. If you think your mentor is not really a mentor, not the way it's been described to you, you'll find another one. There'll be a lot of mentors for you if you do what Scott and I both recommended, which is just be serial networkers, right? So yes, that was what someone told me to do. I found it, I used it, I still use it.
Good.
I think mine was, someone had said, just make sure you're happy, right? Because if you wake up, the alarm clock goes off, and you're miserable, and you don't want to go into work, right? That kind of says it's not a place you want to be, and you might want to think about switching jobs, right? But when the alarm clock goes off and you're excited to go to work, excited to see the people, you're excited to get the day going, and I've had both, that's really important, because life's too short. You want to be doing what you love and you're passionate about, and it could take 2, 3, 4 different jobs to find that. And for me, it did. But yeah, I think it's just being happy in doing what you're doing. And to the mentor, it's like, I wasn't out looking for a mentor. It just kind of happened. And a lot of times that's what happens. It was a manager. He took me under his wing. He helped me become or switch from a salesperson to a manager, which is not easy, and helped me along. And it just kind of happened. So sometimes when you're not looking, it just happens, and it could be, again, it could be your father, or it could be your manager, or it could be a peer, it could be, anyone. Sometimes it just happens, and it's nice when it does, and you don't realize it. And in a few years, you look back like, wow, this guy's really helped me, or this woman's really helped me become who I am today. And, so don't always go out looking for it. Sometimes it happens, but, keep your eyes open, because there's people that can help you.
I also wanted to bring something up, and it's something that impacted me a little bit. I think at some points it will impact you guys. When you graduate from Oneonta and you're looking for a job, a lot of times your resume might be on a pile with someone who went to an Ivy League school, right? Or someone that went to a quote unquote top-notch school, right? And here we are, we're Oneonta, we're in the middle of the pack, right? So it's going to be harder. It's going to be harder. But I think the best analogy for me to think about, it's almost like the shy person in the room that once you get to know them, they're not shy. You just have to get to know them, right? So it might be harder for us as a group, and I'll say us, right? Because it is really us. But if you remember what I said in the beginning, right? All of us, not all of us, the majority of us, because it's Oneonta, had to work before we got to college, had to work while we were in college, and had to work right away after college. And most of us probably went to school on financial aid, right? So all of us understood the value of work, which is way different than when I get a kid from Princeton who's sitting in the seat that he's interviewing with. He played lacrosse in high school, he played lacrosse at Princeton, and he might have even gone to one of these really, really high-end prep schools for high school, didn't even go to public high school. And now I'm talking to him, and I'm going to be the first person he's ever worked for. Guess what? I typically don't ever hire somebody like that. So it's very important that you get the hiring manager to understand who you are, and how you get there is going to be very specific to each one of you, because on paper, right, we're in the middle of the pack, right? We're just in the middle of the pack kind of people. So we have to get there. Now it's harder for you guys because it's Zoom. So I think that Oneonta people really do excel in face-to-face scenarios. If I look at everyone who I still keep in touch with, that, what are they doing now, or how'd they get there? Most of us are doing something pretty much different from what we were doing in school. And I said to you guys in the beginning, I go, Oneonta people are scrappy. We are scrappy, and use that to your advantage, and don't get discouraged, right? Just keep going. It's going to work out. The kid from Princeton, he's going to get turned down from the first job and go crying to his parents. Now, what do I do? Right? Most of us aren't afforded that ability to go do that. So keep after it and do with the job search, like what you've done your whole life. I'm assuming, and I talk about it as a stereotype almost. I think we're all pretty scrappy people because of what we're in that school. I don't know what the numbers are, Jill. You know this better than I would. Like, was it 70+% of the kids have financial aid or something like that in school?
Yeah.
Right. So
or scholarship or financial aid, sure.
Yeah, and I know, like, I did work study. I worked in the registrar's office for 2 years. I had a business up at school. Like, I think it really, really helped. Like when it came time for going after that job. Now, it wasn't as competitive back then as it is now. I think maybe it neutralized. I think you guys are better prepared for the workforce than Scott and I probably were back in 1991. But just like, dig deep, dig really, really deep. You guys will be fine.
But it's interesting you say that, because, and I always think about the people I've hired over the years and my teams, and the best people I've hired are kids from SUNYs. And it's, I've hired people from everything, Ivy Leagues and big schools like Syracuse, and the best people were from state universities. And I continue to look for that when I hire, because like you said, they're scrappy, they're hustlers, and all the people that we know from when we went to college, they're all doing really well because they weren't gonna settle for not making money and not having a good career and not doing well. And you saw that throughout college, whether they're working or side jobs or whatever it was, they all wanted to make money. They wanted to be successful. So I think that's really important, because that's what we have, and we're all in this together. Like in a SUNY or Oneonta, we're hustlers. We want to do well. We want to make money. We'll do whatever it takes, blood, sweat, and tears. Where a lot of people don't have that, and that's why the best people I think I've hired have been from SUNYs, because of the work ethic, the hard work. They started early on doing this, right? High school, college, and it goes a long way. And you see that spark in their eye, which is different from a lot of people. But I continue to tell people that, and of all the people I've hired, I always go back and say, SUNY people is nothing like them. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's great. It's great.
Yeah.
I have one question for you guys, sort of unrelated. Does anyone when it snows out still go down on the lunchroom trays down the Golding Hill? Like,
they don't give them trays anymore. They got too expensive. They kept disappearing from the dining hall. So
well, it's because they're probably going down the Golding Hill.
Of course, that's the only reason you would steal a tray.
Oh, I missed that. And is the cow path open or closed?
Open.
It is open.
Yeah, they paved it, I think.
They did? It's not a cow path anymore. It's like a parking lot then.
Still pretty steep. So I mean, you guys have all shown a lot of initiative, and I really want to encourage you to take advantage of opportunities like this, where we have our alumni who have so graciously given their time and opportunity to ask some questions. That bodes well for you, and the college really works hard to have opportunities like this available to you. I'm sure a lot of you know that there's internship funding for School of Economics and Business up to $5,000 a quarter, or an internship, also political science. So there are opportunities out there for you to take advantage of. You just have to make sure you're using all the resources that are available to you. And please, I know that Steve and Scott mean it when they say, reach out to them if you've got an interview coming up, or if you want them to take a look at your resume or link in with them. I think, gosh, you'd be silly not to.
Yeah, and then last thing I'll say, like, as you guys become successful in the business world or whatever you end up choosing to do, when Jill or anyone else at the school calls you for help for the kids coming out of school, participate, right? We want these numbers to get big and keep getting big, and get involved. Once you graduate, stay involved with the school, right? There's too many times when I speak to my friends like, you know what? I should have this, I should have that. And Scott and I had lost touch for a while, and this was actually a great connector for us. But when you graduate and when things work out, just remember, give back.
Yeah. And even if you guys are too shy to reach out to an alumni on your own, if you see somebody on LinkedIn that you want to connect with, send me an email. I'll put my my email in the chat and just say, hey, would you mind connecting me with so-and-so on LinkedIn? I see that they have a career that's really interesting to me. And you certainly don't need me to act as an intermediary. The alumni 99.9% of the time would, obviously answer you. But if that would give you a little bit of confidence or something like that, email me and I'm happy to connect you.
That's great. Jill, thanks for organizing.
Yeah, it's all Alumni Association, Stacy and Laura's work, but I just wanted to get a chance to see some folks and say thank you to Steve and Margot for their scholarship, and to you, Scott, for participating. You guys gave great advice. And you graduated in the 90s. That was not an easy time to get a job. So I think don't get discouraged and don't let people tell you this is a hard time, because it's always a hard time.
It's always a hard time. Yeah.
Yes.
I got my brokerage license and the market crashed 6 weeks after. So like, there's always something going on. So, if you work hard and you have a positive attitude, you guys are going to make stuff happen. So
Totally agree. It's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. I hope you enjoyed.
Please stay in touch.
Thank you too so much. Appreciate your time. And thanks to the faculty for everything that you do too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.